Hang in there. It
that.
is.
Smylie Kaufman for 61. Wow.
I'm Smylie Kaufman, and this is The Smylie Show.
Welcome back to The Smylie Show, and if you are watching this on YouTube, as I hope you are looking at Smylie Kaufman wearing a really fresh-looking RLX, little Ralph Lauren piece of team-issued apparel. I feel like, here's the problem is, I would be giving you grief about this in the same fashion that you just roasted me for wearing all my President's Cup stuff last fall that I got, but you are an RLX guy, so you kind of have a pass here in a way that I did not last fall.
What if I was coming on to let you guys know that I was a vice captain? Would that change anything? That
would change things materially. We've actually had a few commenters on the YouTube just clamoring, saying Kiz needs an assistant to the assistant captain. That should be you.
The only way I'm making it inside that team room, it's not as a vice captain. It's definitely not as a captain. It's somehow the official cooler dragger for the week, or the cart driver with the cooler in the back. That's the only way I make the team.
I'd like that. Like if you had sort of like a motorized situation where you have like one of those bottle openers that's off the back of the cooler and you're riding around the back just popping open Mick Ultras and toss them to the boys on the first tee. I could get behind that.
It's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea, especially when, the mojo's not quite working on the golf course. Guess what? Here comes SK coming up in one of these pimped out golf carts, and I'll just natapult you a cold one. And next thing you know, we're back. We're getting it back.
Director of morale. That should be a position. They have all these different.
That's right.
They're optimizing team rooms and roles. Let's get some analytics behind having Smylie Kaufman just frisbeeing cold ones to the boys when they need to pick me up. That's got to be worth a ton. Strokes gained vibes.
Part of me was like, yes, that'd be so much fun. I'd love to be a part of the team room, but boy, I love being a part of the broadcast for Ryder Cup. That's pretty dang cool too. That's kind of bucket list, being able to do that.
And boy, do we have a good one coming. And we are all the more fired up today. We're recording this on Wednesday evening. We watched Keegan Bradley make his captain's picks this morning. I believe you're listening to this on a Thursday morning. And it's time to dig into it. And we're doing it, Smylie, as always, with the help of our good friends at Ahead for a Ryder Cup look ahead. Ahead is a strategic partner for enterprise clients, helping them navigate the path toward digital transformation, much like an expert caddy, reading the course ahead and providing the winning combination of technology and execution. You can learn more at ahead.com. And so, Smylie, let's just recap it. Let's start at the top of the day. And so here were the picks. So of course the players that are already on the team in this order: Scotty Scheffler, JJ Spaun, Xander Schauffele, Russell Henley, Harris English, Bryson DeChambeau. Those are the players who'd already qualified. The order in which Keegan Bradley announced these picks, maybe not the same order as which number they were entering the team. We can maybe debate that a little bit later as to who the last man on the team was. I don't know that necessarily matters, but Justin Thomas, Collin Morikawa, Ben Griffin, Cameron Young, Patrick Cantlay, and Sam Burns. And so the first question that is begged, Smylie, of course, is Keegan Bradley does not pick himself, right? And so I think you and I talked on the side. We've been leading up to this decision of, how many players. Is it a 4-for-3 situation? Is it a 3-for-2 situation? Where does Keegan fall amongst that list? But ultimately, you feel like this is the right decision, right? Like you feel like this ended up in the correct place for just the overall sketch of this team and the storylines that would have emanated from this whole day had Keegan picked himself.
Totally. I think this is the right team. I think you could have made an argument that Keegan could have played maybe in place of Collin Morikawa, but even then, it's still difficult to be a playing captain and all of the duties that he has to have. Just the amount of stuff this guy has to deal with is just absurd, and trying to deal with all of that, which is a lot. And I know they've done a lot of things that PGA of America has to help with, manage some of the duties as a captain, but still, I just couldn't ever get behind Keegan playing in the morning and then somehow getting his picks out in the afternoon, even though they might be set. But it's the job of the captain to kind of observe what he has seen, who's not playing well, making sure that you can ride the good teams, bench a guy who's maybe not bringing his best stuff. And I think that this was always the team ever since, really, I think the middle of the playoffs when Cameron Young, Sam Burns, and even Patrick Cantlay at the Tour Championship coming on. JT, of course, had an incredible season, maybe not the best form coming in, but still, like, he had a decent Tour Championship as well. And then, of course, the last pick of, I guess it was Sam, Collin. I guess Sam
Ben
was
Griffin.
and Ben.
Maybe I missed. Yeah.
There was rumors that Ben Griffin wouldn't make the team, and I thought that might have been the easiest call to make. And I thought one of the most interesting things that Keegan said at this press conference, which, by the way, there was a ton of stupid questions and a lot of questions that were reiterated. It's like, we've already asked him. We know this was a hard decision. But he talked about Ben Griffin on how cool it was for him to call him and tell him that he had made the team, and basically had communicated to a lot of the rookies or potential rookies that it's not easy to make this team on points. And he was very, I think, just in general, talking to these guys and explaining to them, hey, just because you're in the top 12 doesn't mean you're making this team. And I think a lot of rookies, guys that are in the top 12, they're like, oh, I should make the team. Well, guess what? Experience it seemed to be vital for the picking process, especially for a guy like Collin Morikawa, for a guy who really hasn't had much form, for them to say, you know what, we don't throw it out the door. We don't care. We know Morikawa and what he's going to bring, regardless of what he's got coming in. So, final thought on Keegan not playing. I think it's the right decision. If these guys would not have played well down the stretch, I would have been for him playing. But I think most of these guys showed enough. I would say that you could argue that Morikawa and maybe JT hadn't played maybe quite as well coming in, but those were the two easiest ones, in my opinion, to say, you know what, well, both of you guys are in the top 10 in the world. Both of you have shown what you've done at Ryder Cups. So pretty easy for me to see how this team was pretty put together.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many different directions you can take the analysis of Keegan's decision. I think, he said he was heartbroken to miss. I think you could even, rewind it a little bit and look at the heartbreak that he experienced missing out on the last team and the way that was documented on Full Swing, and just wonder, what sort of position he arrives in this year round, as the captain trying to make these picks, and whether or not the PGA of America could have intervened and looked at a different captain. But I think there's also part of it where it is a great, great honor to be this captain. And he said today in that press conference that this decision has been made for some time. I think, this is just editorializing, but this is the greatest PR move of all time. If you go out and you win this Ryder Cup at Bethpage Black, where the atmosphere is going to be unbelievable, and you are forever the captain that put the team in front of self. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Keegan Bradley goes out and does that, and you win the thing. I mean, the victory parade is going to be the entirety of this next season. The ovations we heard him getting at every single tour stop, every single major, I think those are just going to be amplified when a guy does that, when he very easily could have picked himself. And sure, there would have been a lot of chatter about it. It would have been a storyline. It would have been a piece of drama, but no one would have said he didn't have the resume to be included on this team. So for him to go out and do this now, I think maybe getting to sort of the dynamics of that last man on the team, you and I both, I think, agree that it was Collin Morikawa. Maybe that is the thing that made it easier for him to not pick himself. And this is no disrespect to the other guys in the mix, but like, let's say it comes down to a Maverick McNeely, who had a great overall year and came on strong at the end of the year in the playoffs, or a Chris Gotterup who just flashed hard at the end of the season and could have rolled some great form into this competition. You could have looked at those guys and said, okay, rookies, maybe Keegan's experience around this team makes more sense to have him as a playing captain. But when you're comparing Keegan to knowing that Collin Morikawa was out of form, but a guy who's won multiple majors and who's been on these teams before, maybe a little easier to say, you know what, I'm going to pick Collin. Let's find the right partner for him. I'm just going to captain this thing.
Totally. I love all the stuff you just said about Keegan and just picking himself and valuing the team and just being the captain. I think it's going to be a very inspired bunch. I think all these players, just listening to their interviews, how much respect they have for Keegan and the process and the dedication that he's shown throughout this entire process. And it's pretty evident, I think, from every person I've talked to has talked about how much has gone into it to this point. And you could kind of see it with Keegan, and I guess the only curveball that could have happened at the Tour Championship is if Keegan went on Sunday and somehow won. That would have been probably the last curveball to where I think people they wouldn't have let him not play. So that would have been the one where, hey, maybe Morikawa doesn't make the team or Sam Burns doesn't make the team. Although I think you could argue both sides of it, with Burns and Morikawa and kind of what their strengths are. But it was, I thought, an interesting press conference. I thought Keegan came across incredibly well, extremely well prepared, and just how he talked about every single aspect of his plan, his answers, and how he made the phone calls to players that didn't get picked. I think Maverick McNeely was an example. That was one of the questions that was asked was, what was that call like? A player that was 10th on the list being Maverick McNeely. And he said it was really hard, and I think he was pretty just generally honest with these guys. And he said every single one of them handled it like a pro. And I think for the most part, Maverick would have been the one guy that I would have said, you know what, you could have found a place on this team for Maverick. That's one guy that if you put him up against Burns, Kim, all these guys, you could have said, yeah, I could see Maverick on this team. But I think it comes down to, it's hard to make this team as a rookie when we just don't know what you're going to do. There's part of that. And I think Ben Griffin played better than Maverick. I think Ben outplayed Maverick this year. I mean, when I look at Ben Griffin, if he would have missed this team, it would have been a travesty, in my opinion, because of how well he's played. In 12 events, he had finished inside the top 14 10 times. And then he had a win and a second. And at Memorial, too. We're talking about Memorial, like where event he was winning by 5 at one point. So just an incredible season for Griffin to make the team. I was happy to see that the boys club was kind of like nixed with that, because if Ben didn't make the team, there would have been fireworks.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think, there's always, it's actually funny how this kind of came around, because I think in the lead up, we were thinking this was going to be drama filled, but really it just came down to the Keegan question. And I don't think anyone had any real qualms about the players that made it on the team, other than just, okay, you're subbing in one person. I mean, I'm sure there are many that would have argued for Maverick McNeely or someone else over a Collin Morikawa, but I think the majority who are looking at this roster understand why it was composed and the way that it was. And I want to get into some of those pieces as well. You're talking about Maverick and where he could fit on the team, and you hear Keegan call Sam Burns the best putter on the planet. And I mean, you can never have too many good putters, but just was there some sort of skill duplication as you're looking at statistics and what the pairings are going to be? But just a couple more items on the dilemma that Keegan faced as to whether he was going to pick himself or as he did, not pick himself, and some questions he was asked in the press conference following. He was asked about Rory's comments, which as a TGL hardo, I found very amusing, because they're on the same Boston Common squad. So I'm wondering how much of that needling happened behind the scenes. But the idea that maybe there was some gamesmanship involved there. They don't know what's going on in this building. I also think maybe
what did they want to happen? Do you think? Did they wanted him to play or not want him to play? Like,
I think
you would have thought they would have said, like, you would have said that maybe they should try to get him to play.
I think they were reverse psychologying it.
Oh,
that would be my guess.
Okay, gotcha.
And then if I really want to put my tinfoil hat on, I think there was some gamesmanship going the other way when there was that meeting reported on where Luke Donald and Keegan agreed to allow for a substitute, acting captain if Keegan was playing, that give advice to players.
I think Luke was like, "Yep, I'll sign that. No problems here from Luke P. Donald. Yep, done." Got it.
Is there, and I even think it's interesting, like, that they do captain's picks at different times. Like, they don't have to do it at the same time. The fact that the Euros aren't making their picks till September 1st, is there any sort of built-in advantage there of seeing what team they're going to field and then knowing how they could?
I have a couple issues on how the Ryder Cup is run.
Okay.
I think they really miss the TV drama side of revealing the pairings. Instead of just revealing the pairings, I want both captains sitting there and say, we're putting out this person, and then they match, and then they go.
Like President's Cup.
Yes.
Yeah. Ryder Cup, they just put in an envelope. I'm pretty sure that's the way it has been.
Maybe that's tradition, but I also think it's, hey, this is a TV product. Let's make this as fun, and just to see if any of the captains happen to be like, that was a stupid selection. Like, we're about to absolutely demolish you in match 2.
I think for sure they should do it that way, especially in the interest of matching up. We get some power versus power matches. We got in Rome, the Scotty versus Raw match. You can kind of guess where the guys are going to be in the anchor leg and things like that. But I totally agree. I think that it's funny that, not to dump on the President's Cup, but in a competition where we kind of know what the outcome is going to be, there's this built-in of like, ooh, which international pairing are they going to throw against this American pairing? It's like, well, it's probably not going to matter to a certain extent outside of your maybe top 4 players. Whereas in the Ryder Cup, that would come with a ton of intrigue. So, yeah, I don't know.
It's interesting for sure. Well, you got more quotes you said?
Well, I just was curious, thoughts on the whole Rory discussion. And then,
okay.
And then I'd say even as a spinoff of that how much do you think, and Keegan even talked about how the Ryder Cup was much different the last time they had a playing captain and Arnold Palmer, much, much different, right? The weight of this competition, it was close to an exhibition in early stages. And now it's a very, very important event that holds a lot of weight and a lot of importance. And really I'd say, look, you should talk to other golf historians on this, but I think most would say that didn't really transform into like the Seve era of the Europeans really taking ownership and wanting to kind of make this thing feel like a real competition instead of a hit and giggle. So I'm wondering if any part of Keegan you think was not wanting to be the first playing captain since someone as iconic as Arnold Palmer, if that factors in at all, or, what else do you think goes into this decision? And then we can kind of move off this and talk about the picks themselves.
Well, Doug Ferguson was the one to kind of come in a little later and just ask Keegan more point blank about, okay, you said that at one point you decided you weren't going to play, but where specifically did you decide you were playing, and when did that kind of turn off? And so if you didn't get a chance to watch the press conference, Keegan basically says, after the Travelers win, I really had to put a lot of thought into this and really be more open to the idea of playing, because at the time, I think the team was not quite as, set in stone. You still had plenty of players that really hadn't played to their level that you were looking for. And Keegan was clearly one of the best players. And as I think the season went on, you started to see more guys start to play better. And then Keegan kind of drop off a little bit to where now he's being grouped in the same amount of players, to where I think at that point, Keegan's like, all right, I'm not going to pick myself over a guy if I feel like I'm grouped into the same deal with them, even though world ranking, he was 11th in the world, which is pretty ridiculous. But it's not the same deal as it was back in 1963 when Arnold Palmer was the playing captain. At least you can't imagine the scale of what the Ryder Cup is now compared to what it used to be. It's night and day. We're talking about, 60 years of difference. A lot has changed in this event. It's becoming the most probably watched and anticipated events that, just coming off of Rome and what this Europe team is built to potentially do. So it's going to be an epic Ryder Cup.
Well, and maybe the best place to go next is, and by the way, next week when we get those picks on Monday, our Wednesday episode next week is going to do the same deep dive we're doing now on the U.S. team for the European side. Once we know the entirety of their roster, I think we can take a strong guess, but I think let's see what those are. But what I'd love to do is maybe run through this entire roster and just hear your thoughts on how each one of these players profiles at Bethpage, what strengths you feel like they'll bring and just a singular context, and where maybe the course could expose them or where they might struggle.
Sure.
And then let's maybe start going through pairings and talking about hypotheticals, who matches up well. We don't have the same insight the stats team has, but I can just on personality, I have a couple of ones that I have circled as maybe these two guys could be together. So let's just start. Let's just start. Yeah.
One quick thing before we get there. I thought one other thing I wanted to touch on just from the press conference I wanted to get your take on was I thought Kyle Porter was the best of the bunch. Of course, we just had him on the show. Go check his stuff out at Normal Sport. Continues to do a great job over there with his newsletter. And he asked the question about data and stuff that we typically like to look at, and in how they evaluate who makes the team or who doesn't make the team. So, all the stuff that we talked about of why Keegan should be on the team, it's like, well, he was one of the best Americans in the last 3, 6, 9 months. And we have all these reference points that we can refer to. And he summed it up with the data and basically asking Keegan and said, hey, were y'all looking at that? What exactly were the places you guys were pulling from to make these decisions? And he gave an answer that surprised me a little bit, because I thought he was going to say, yeah, well, we really heavily relied on the stats guys, and this is how we ended up picking the team, was primarily through their opinions. And he actually went a little different way than I thought he would, and said that we really like to see how these guys finish at the end of the leaderboard, at the end of the week. And that surprised me a little bit, because you can kind of poke a hole in the argument there with the Collin Morikawa thing, the Patrick Cantlay deal. And so maybe Morikawa would be much more of a data set pick, looking at how good his iron game and tee to green game and how accurate he is and how good he could be with foursomes. So maybe it's not quite for all of the players that he was kind of referring to, but I think in a sense, when you look at all of these picks and you see what all these players have kind of done down the stretch and see how they've been consistently inside the top 15 of the leaderboard, really like the entire summer, the American flags on the board have been incredible. So I think he was more referring to that in his answer, which I thought was an interesting question and an interesting answer.
Yeah, I think I laugh a little bit sometimes when we talk about just data. It's this all-encompassing thing of like, we're going to go to data to figure it out. It's like, well, you could do a lot of things with that. Like, what parameters are you sorting by? You know, are you looking at the last month, 3 months, 6 months? Like, you know, what sort of, there are all different ways you can choose to interpret that data.
And do you just plug in Bethpage as your data point? Like, is that the only thing that you can look at?
So there must be a subjective way to view objective data. And data gut. That's a proprietary model. Nobody else can use it. It's trademarked, so don't even think about it. We need data. I need to make data gut t-shirts. I'm long overdue on data gut t-shirts.
I think you need to hit a one and done winner before you do that.
We had a nice comeback. It should be like one of those, you know, like when your high school baseball team, you know, wins the sectional championship and they have all the games and the scores in the back. I need to have like all my one and done winners from 2 years ago on a shirt, and the front says like the data gun model.
The data gun model. yeah.
Like data gun, summer of 24, whatever it was. But I think it's, you know, there are a lot of different applications of that data, and so. And that's what would really fascinate me. And I'm sure that some others have done deeper dives into this than I have, but I'm sure a lot of it is protected. Like, they want to keep those things proprietary. Like, they don't want people knowing how they're looking at this. But I'm certain of one thing, which is that they had these teams assembled, you know, to look at all these things and pour through the data. And I'm sure they're providing information to captains of these teams that looks similar on a year-to-year basis and a captain-to-captain basis. But at the same time, you know, Keegan's probably asking for customized reports and asking for things where he might look at that data a little differently than a past captain. And so, you know, whatever he's actually means by the generic answer he's giving to Kyle Porter in that setting, I'd be very intrigued to know. And I think it was I also love when Kyle was like, open up a question. He's like, hey, can I ask these guys questions, or are they just kind of hanging out here?
That was great.
Are we good? Can I ask JT a question? They're like, yeah, no, they're here to go. Yeah.
He was great. He was definitely the MVP of question asking. Him and Doug asked the best ones.
Yeah.
I was most disappointed because everybody kept asking Keegan about how difficult the decision was being a playing captain, that nobody asked about Napa. Nobody thought about, hey, so what does the next month look like? You know, are you guys going to play Napa after that? When there was no questions that got me more excited about what the team building aspect of the next month looked like. I'm like, what are we doing, guys? Like, we got the team together. Let's ask about what you're planning to do to get these guys to buy in to the 11 other guys that they're playing with.
Yeah, I share the same gripes. I mean, this gets me on my tangent about like, what are we asking these guys anyway? This is where I side with Collin Morikawa on all the fast gripes, you know. But I do think, in brief, it's like, I think it's even going back to the Scotty press conference at the Open of like, we ask these open-ended questions about like the big, you know, personality-based storylines like Keegan picking himself, and we fail to ask the things that actually get these guys excited, which is like, tell us about your process. You know, to your point here, tell us about your prep process. What's Napa going to look like? What are the scouting trips going to look like? You know, how are we going to kind of figure out who's playing with who? So Anyway, I'm going to cut myself off before I go on a deep rant. But should we start? Unless you have other press conference items, I'd love to kind of just start running through the guys on this team.
It's not necessarily press conference, and maybe you can kind of loop this into the things you're about to talk about. But when we're thinking about these pairings and potentially how they're going to get these teams kind of sorted, I'm sure that they generally have an idea, and maybe they're going to be a bit of a work in progress. And hey, you might see some pairings in Napa that might give you a bit of a hint of potentially guys playing together,
like pods and stuff like that.
Yeah, maybe something like that. Maybe they all have bunker rooms. Like, hey, this is bunker room A, B, C, and D. Maybe
more room for activities. At the very least.
Room for activities, but. Yeah. I am interested in the most of, and maybe this is kind of how to get this discussion going, but the foursomes aspect is so interesting to me because every home team typically likes to start out with foursomes because it's a bit of an advantage for how awkward the format is. But you would think, and I don't think the data actually the data doesn't say this as much, but the U.S. I believe has been really good in foursomes.
I should not comment without looking, but my understanding in previous Ryder Cups, and it could be home and away based, is just that the Europeans are generally better in foursomes and we're generally better in fourball.
I think that's the theory, but I don't know how accurate that the data is on that. I actually want to look at that up.
Well, and we don't have to do this in any sort of formal way, but I think the thing that struck me as I looked at this whole roster is I remember vividly us watching the captain's picks that Zach Johnson made for Rome. We did a whole live show and a stream on it, and we came off that show and we were already pairing guys up like easily, bang, 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 right when they were making the picks. And for this team, it does not feel as easy to me for whatever reason. And so I'll just throw out a few to you and you tell me like yes, no on some of these, but there are obvious ones like Xander Schauffele, Patrick Cantlay. Those guys are going to play together, obviously. Scotty's got two different options now. In addition to this Scotty Scheffler, Sam Burns pairing we've seen before, he's got a great partner, Russell Henley, that played well at the President's Cup last year. But past that, I wrote down, like, it seems like JT and Xander have struck up an interesting friendship over the past couple years based on, some putting advice. And I saw JT post something recapping his year where the first picture of the carousel was those two guys hanging out together. Mm-hmm. Like maybe that's one where if you're rotating can't lay out, that could be one. I was thinking Bryson and JJ could be maybe one where you get like a good iron, like a bomber off the tee, a good irons player. And then, depending on who's putting, JJ's had a hot year at the lab. Bryson's usually pretty scientific in that process and good there. I had the dogs together, Russell Henley and Harris English. I feel like that one could be a pretty good one together. Maybe Bryson DeChambeau and Ben Griffin on the sort of personality side, kind of fun, outgoing guys. They can be a little quirky from time to time. And then the last one I wrote down was Collin Morikawa and Cam Young. But none of these are like obvious to me. These are just ones where I'm just looking around trying to plug guys in. Do you have ones that just are stand out? These guys definitely will play together.
Well, I think it's interesting. Bryson's, meticulous he is about everything, right? Like just the golf ball, he's always trying to change a lot of things, whether it's, or just be aware of to the nth degree of exactly what he's trying to do out there. And I think confusing Bryson with a different golf ball is something that I think would be interesting, because I don't know if Bryson played any foursomes at Whistling Straits. Part of me feels like he just played four ball at that week. So for Bryson, like, you would have to pair him up with somebody with a golf ball that he would be able to trust, because you don't need him losing his partner, right? Like, I think Cam Young and him play a similar golf ball.
It's funny because Cam Young just went to that double dot prototype.
Yeah.
I know DeChambeau's used, I want to say he used the left dash in the past. He uses a Pro V1X. So maybe that's a really good call. That's a really good call.
That is where I would like to start with Bryson, is just because of his equipment, how meticulous he is about all that. That you think that there's a chance.
Not to interrupt, but I'm looking at a golf.com article where Bryson's using the same proto as Cam. So there you go, right off the bat.
That could be a team. And just having Cam's mellowness, but also the New York crowd that he can, get hype off of. But I think that potentially could be a good team. They both hit it long. They could be something at Bethpage.
The golf ball call is really good because that is like mad scientist Bryson, and also just the visual of if there's anything that's going to get Cam Young coming out of his shell, Bryson pumping up the crowd and Cam just sort of chuckling, maybe gives you an arm or two, getting the crowd going. That could be a fun one.
If not Cam Young, Ben Griffin, I think would be a very good personality fit with Bryson. I think they both are very energetic, cocky players. Bryson, he plays a Titleist golf ball, but the fact that Ben Griffin plays a max fly, I'm pretty sure that's a firmer golf ball that I think Bryson might be able to work with. At least that's my thought. I'm not sure really how the max fly ball plays, but it seems like it would be a golf ball that would have less spin versus more spin, which I feel like is a good thing for Bryson. Maybe not. I'm not sure exactly where he lives on the max fly golf ball, but that's another question mark.
Yeah, I mean, unless it's a Polera, I don't think it really matters for Bryson.
I'll say that Ben Griffin right now, I doubt he'll be playing any foursomes unless they just happen to have somebody that really likes to play in that deal. But you could say Ben he won a foursomes event this year. He won the Zurich. He's won in this format, so that's a plus that a guy is comfortable playing in either format.
Who's your closest like Andrew Novak comp on this team that would fit nicely with Ben? I mean, I know a lot of that partnership was based on the relationship that they have, Ben and Andrew, but like, is there another guy that plays similarly where that would make sense?
I think Ben could really slot in to play with everybody. He's a player that is super friendly. He has no weaknesses. He's kind of a lot like Harris English. I think him and Harris could definitely play together. Just to me, that both of those guys know each other from Sea Island, so I could see those two guys playing together.
What do you think on? I mean, there have been so many years in a row where just another inseparable partnership has been JT and Jordan Spieth, and Jordan not being there. Who do you think JT slots in with most nicely?
It's interesting because I don't know. I don't know. His record playing with, I'm sitting here looking at some of his stuff that he's done. He went 2-3 in foursomes, 2-1 and 2 in four ball, and he's 3-0 in singles. Talking about JT. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at this group this year. He's played, I believe, with Patrick Cantlay before, in some four ball stuff, if I'm not mistaken. But JT's what he's been doing well this year is that he's been putting well. He needs to start hitting the golf ball better. So that would be my biggest concern is, can you find somebody that's going to be really solid for him, that's going to be in play a lot, for him to feel less pressure about having to get the ball in play. So foursomes right now, JT has a ton of experience, but I'm not ready to throw JT out in foursomes until I see him play at Napa. I need to see him have like a really nice ball striking week. And then from there, I'll be like, okay, yep, I'm good sending him out in foursomes, because this team does not have a lot of experience for Friday morning. That's the one thing that concerns me, is that can they get enough experience in this lineup? Because a lot of the experience that we're talking about isn't necessarily in form. Xander, Pat, and JT, Morikawa, all four of these guys have not been in form. And these are the players that you would expect Keegan would throw out on Friday morning.
Do you think, what do you think is the most prudent move there? Is it to match experience with inexperience, or is it to stack,
your best four teams out there?
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Like you're not going to put Scotty and Bryson together. You're going to split these guys up to make sure that you have the best.
You want balanced teams. Got it. Okay.
You want the four best teams. You don't want to have two of the best teams. You want to have the four best teams. Like you don't want to have the first and the second best team, and then the eighth and the ninth of all the different scenarios. Like you want to be able to put the best possible four teams together, which most of the time you're splitting those teams up with good players on each. They're all great players, but you know what I mean?
And it's such a good observation on the experience versus form, because it almost, outside of Scotty, it almost splits exactly down the road with that, where, all the guys that have experience don't necessarily have the form, and all the guys who have the form don't necessarily have the experience. I'm even looking at, we're talking about JT, thinking about the composition of like the relationship of those partnerships and, how much of a psychotic competitor both he and Jordan have been. And I'm looking at this roster, and everyone on this roster is competitive. I'm not saying that, but the three guys on this roster that we know to be psychotic competitors are JT, Scotty Scheffler, and Sam Burns. And so if Scotty ends up paired with Russell Henley in a couple sessions, would a JT Sam Burns pairing be something that could work well together?
Yeah, it totally could. And I think that's the one thing that surprised me a little bit when they decided to go foursomes in the morning and four ball in the afternoon is that I don't feel comfortable enough with their foursomes pairings yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was thinking that, man, it's easy to find your four ball pairings. It's simple to me to come up with your best four ball pairings because you're not so concerned about the players who wouldn't get comfortable with that format quickly in a very high tense environment. It just goes by real quick. You could be 4 down through 6 before you even blink, because you're only playing on 2 balls. And my other thought on this is if you were going 4 balls in the morning, and you didn't, I feel like you still have to send Bryson out in foursomes in the morning, even though I don't know how good of a foursomes player he's going to be, even though you feel like he's kind of an exhibitionist, if you will. Like this is kind of right up his alley. Like, hey, let's go do a scramble from the red tees, right? Like that's right up his alley. So foursomes is honestly shouldn't be a big issue. I don't know why I'm talking about like it is, but in either format, whether it was foursomes or 4 ball, Bryson has to tee off first for the Americans. He has to send the first tee shot at the green. Doesn't matter if he gets there or not. That ball needs to be at the flagstick. And I need the caddy to be on the tee and giving him a number. Hey, it's 370 front. And if it's actually 385 carry over that bunker. Okay. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Just fire. I need the caddy to be on the green tending the flagstick
exactly.
in case it goes in. Yeah.
And then can you fire a red smoke if it hits the green, fire a white smoke if it's in the bunker, and a blue smoke just because.
Just fire them all at the same time. Like one of those popsicles that you have on the 4th of July. That's hilarious. I think that
right. So doesn't he have to hit the first shot?
He has to. I mean, and that's the thing is I think we were counting on Keegan as a vibes guy, which he can still do and still be in the mix of it as a captain that's definitely on the younger side, obviously still playing. And I think that's part of the value of having him as a captain is he can give this a feel that is so different from the old guard boys club type thing that everyone wants to get away from, is he really can be involved in building energy. But like Keegan would be a vibes guy. Bryson would be a vibes guy. Justin Thomas, Keegan called him the heartbeat of the team. He's definitely a vibes guy. And I think we have some interesting new entrants like Ben Griffin easily could be a guy that gets in the mix, starts pumping up the crowd.
The Aviators.
But I'm trying to think other guys on that team. Scotty, he gets fired up when he's playing, but is maybe less of a theatrics guy. Don't feel like JJ Spawn, Xander Schauffele, Russell Henley, or Harris English are much for the theatrics.
Vibes is all about making birdies. It doesn't you can have great vibes, but nobody's going to have good vibes when you're 3 down, when you're crap beat in through 9 holes. It's all about who can go out and play the best golf and leave the vibes more for the birdies.
So you're putting together 8 guys, 4 foursomes pairings. Who are you rolling out?
A team of Scotty and Russell. That one's set in stone. Like they're going to play.
Love that.
When they play. When they play, I don't know. I think we'll put them out second because Bryson has to go in the first pairing.
So Bryson's first pairing. We go Bryson Cam to get it going.
Yeah, Bryson and Cam.
That's perfect because you get the New York guy on the tee box early with Bryson. I love that. All right,
so you got Bryson and Cam. You got Scotty and Russell, Xander and Pat.
Xander, Pat go 3. I like that.
And then here's where I feel like JJ is going to end up playing foursomes. It seems like a no-brainer for him to play, or Morikawa. So like one of those 2 guys is going to play in foursomes, and I'm not sure which one that I would lean right now. I'd probably lean JJ at the current moment until I see maybe some more stuff from Morikawa and Napa. But JJ and maybe a JT, maybe a Harris English. Like that's kind of where my brain goes right now.
That's interesting. So what you're saying here effectively is we're going to roll out a rookie in the first pairing. We're going to roll out Another rookie. Well, I mean, both Cam Young and Russell Henley are rookies in the Ryder Cup competition, not rookies in a team sense. Both have played President's Cups. Xander and Pat, they're tried and true, and then we have another rookie in that fourth pairing, and JJ Spawn. If
that's
he
the
goes.
problem. There's nobody with experience that has played foursomes.
See, that's why, like, I would. It would be hard for JJ. I think, to your point, we got to kind of see what form they're in Napa. But I wouldn't be shocked if those last two teams were both experienced teams, and you went like JT and Morikawa.
That's fine.
With that
like
last
Morikawa, he was
pair.
3-0-1 in Whistling Straits. He was 1-3 at Rome, and he was 0-1 in foursomes. So, like, just Morikawa would make the most sense because of his ball striking. Like, he can put a golf ball in play, and but this golf course isn't about putting the golf ball in play as much as it is like hitting it far and in play and being able to make putts. Like, making putts at this golf course is going to be so important because the greens, you're going to be able to make a lot of putts. They're big, like bigger greens, not as much slope. So you're going to see putts hold from everywhere.
Okay, so then can I pitch you on JT and Burns as the fourth team?
I don't hate it. I actually
for the putting. Like, because I think the part of it is I totally hear what you're saying.
You got to send your dogs out. Like, you got to send your dogs out that first.
Burns is a dog.
I still here I am with JJ. Like, he qualified second, and I'm like, do I trust him going out in the morning? I don't. But I also want him to pull. Like, you have to get him out there that first day, but you have to get Ben Griffin out there, and so I just think that JJ is going to be so good in that. Like, you think that's his format that would be the best is the foursomes, because Ben Griffin can go out and give you a bunch of birdies. Like, that's what you see in Ben, but like, he can also play foursomes too. So that's the big question mark to me is between JJ and Griffin is if one of those guys sneaks into the foursomes.
Well, and it's interesting too, because the dynamics on this can change so quickly where everything we talked about works great to set up an afternoon session of four ball where you're betting in some of the rookies and letting them ease in, unless you lose the morning session and then you're caught in this weird between of like, do I need to send out the experienced guys again in the afternoon, or they all lost? So like, do I go to a different group of guys? Because, if you get through day one and a couple guys haven't played who you're trying to get some experience, it's going to get really tough really quick. So, I mean, I think I like this plan. If it means then you're getting, JJ and Ben Griffin, and I guess if we're saying JT Burns, you're not playing JJ, Harris English. I'm trying to think who I'm missing here. Ben Griffin and Collin Morikawa would be the four that we're sitting in this format. And so,
I think the Bethpage in general is not like necessarily the most easy walk. I think it's going to be I think the temperature will help a bunch. Maybe it's because I played at 100 degrees and it felt like the hottest day in the world like 2 months ago. But I think the afternoon reinforcements from the U.S. team is going to be really, really solid. So if they get up a 3-1 lead in foursomes, I think that this 4-ball team, if they have the momentum, I think they could really start to actually get a lead in this deal. But I am most concerned about what type of start they get out to and how aggressively Keegan gets right off the cuff with which guys he puts out there. Does he put any rookies out there in the morning? That's my biggest question.
Yeah, and then I think in the afternoon you could switch it up and go Scotty and Burns, or you keep the guys together that are playing well, and then you kind of mix in a Ben or a JJ at that point. Like I can already see the picture in my mind of a raucous, hydrated Bethpage crowd just getting pumped up by Ben Griffin absolutely pouring it in and 4-ball in the afternoon and us just romping to a victory. Like that I can see. But
let me ask you this. So what players do you think could play 5 times?
Scotty.
So playing morning and afternoon, Friday, Saturday, and then the singles match.
I mean, I think Scotty for sure. I think
any chance Scotty would sit? Do you think he would potentially sit that last afternoon match on
Saturday.
Saturday.
Saturday. I'm sorry. Yeah, potentially. I think it all kind of depends on where we're at. Like I think if
they sat Rahm before, if you recall that one, they sat him Saturday afternoon in Rome just to get him ready for singles because they knew that he was going to go out first in that first match.
Well, and I think a lot of it depends on how you think Keegan's going to approach this from a strategy standpoint. Like if you're up, if you feel comfortable about the lead you have after 3 sessions, and you want to get Scotty rested for tomorrow, for the Sunday singles match,
you're going to put him out first.
Yeah, without a doubt. But if you really need a point and it's close, and he's the guy that's been, let's say he's won 3 points at that stage of the game, it's going to be hard to sit him, right?
And that's even when he's a little bit off, he's still better than everybody else. He's proven it time and time and again, but that's over a 72-hole golf tournament, where he can just, in an 18-hole deal where some guys are more fresh and you run into a ham and egg situation. That's where it's sometimes a little bit, would you rather him be fresh and ready to get a full point for you on Sunday, which could be Europe is they can't put everybody in the back, like especially on the road. Like you have to front load your lineup when you're the away team. And so the US could do a multitude of things on Sunday, but you have to imagine if you get a fresh Scotty on Sunday and play his first 3 matches, that to me is like how you front load where, you have some of your best guys rested, put out Scotty, Bryson, and they kind of go from there.
I think it's much harder to say anyone beyond Scotty could be a 5-session player, just given.
Well, Bryson, you don't think? I think he's physically and mentally, like he's up for that challenge. Like he could take the amount of mental energy that you could lose in this thing, but I just don't see if you could play him twice in foursomes. That's what I question.
Well, and that, I think it comes down to, I think he'd be the next guy on the list for me, but I really do think it comes down to like, what are optimal pairings and how do we see these guys fitting? Like, I think we could easily see a 4 or even a 5-session player that was completely unexpected just because that player combined with a lot of other guys on the team well. And as you're mixing it up on day one, they're winning lots of points. You're saying, okay, let's just keep this guy rolling. He's playing good.
That to me would be a JT or Morikawa. That's the guy that like potentially could play. They could play 3 or 4. Like most likely they're going to play 3 times, but there's a chance like, they could stretch. You could almost make an argument they could play 5. That's how good they're playing.
I'm even thinking like outside chance that if Sam Burns plays that first foursome session and he's hooping, like he's making everything, he's getting the crowd going, and you found a second good partner for him, but he's also playing well with Scotty. That he's a guy that could play five sessions. Yeah. I think a lot of it's like riding hot putters. I think outside chance that if Cam Young keeps putting as well as he's been putting, that if he's playing good golf and he doesn't let up, because he's just been so consistent with that putter over the last month, and if he is a hot putter, but he's also even keel. He's not getting kind of, impacted by any of the mood swings, the emotion swings either way. That's a guy that can play 5 sessions. But I think it's totally partner dependent, and what they're seeing in that room is these guys make sense together.
For sure. I think the United States team has a lot of depth. I really think they do. I think Keegan, the hardest part, I think, is going to get his foursome set up. After that, I think it's going to be pretty fairly obvious on how the rest of the week is going to go, but it's just getting off to a good start. I think it's going to be so important, although it's just only 4 points. For me, it just sets the tone for the week. When you literally got punched in the face for, it felt like 48 straight hours in Rome the last time they played in these foursomes and 4-balls, like you got to be able to go out and set the tone.
Man, I am just getting so fired up thinking about it. Just watching the picks happen today. We're here. I'm looking at you wearing the red, white, and blue. We are so close. I cannot wait to get to Bethpage. So that I think is a pretty thorough just assessment of where we stand on the American side. Of course, looking forward to those European picks next week.
You know who we didn't really even talk about is Harris. Like that would be the other guy too that could be just a just a stalwart rock for this team.
So steady. Yeah. I mean, I think Harris he's another guy that could partner with a lot of different players. And it's almost like those guys you're not overlooking a little bit, but yeah, people forget he has Ryder Cup experience, played great Whistling Straights and it was 21. More so.
But he didn't play foursomes. He didn't play foursomes. Yeah. If he had played in the foursome setup at the 21 Whistling Straights, then you would have been like, okay, at least there's one other guy that has played in this format that you can throw out there. But another guy who hasn't played that format.
Yeah. It's gonna the formation of these pods and these pairings is going to be a high point of intrigue. So
are you're on the Bryson Cam Young thing. You're there with me?
You sold me 100%. I don't even know. I didn't even see that one coming, but the golf ball thing makes it make so much sense.
Because I remember not Bryson, but Cam Young had changed golf balls like somewhat recently. I felt like
before Wyndham.
That's where I read it. I think that's where I read about it. Yeah.
And that when I just Google searched Bryson's ball because I looked at it after the Open Championship, but this is prior to the release of that prototype. And then it's like he's playing the exact same ball that Cam Young's playing. Oh, sold. That works for me. Yeah. So that's, by the way, I need to get my hand on some of those golf balls. I'm a left dash guy right now. I want to get those. Just see if you can bop around the team room. Just look for the little box.
Talking to the wrong guy. Just the wrong guy. Yeah, I'm on a journey to better.
Yeah. I'll find someone who can peruse around there and grab some of those for me. I just want to tinker. I've got the Polaris over here. I'll play anything. I just want to see what it does. All right. Well, this has been fun. Fired up now. I can't wait. I cannot wait to get to Bethpage, and I cannot wait to break down this European team next week, man.
Yeah,
Picks on Monday.
I don't have any European gear, so I don't know what to wear for that.
I think we just keep going American. There has been, I'm not going to call anyone out individually, but there's been too much in the way of zagging. Everyone wants to zag and be the European fanboy. And I get it. I love a lot of guys on the European team. I really do. But, my passport says the United States of America on it. All right.
That's fair.
I know what team I'm rooting for. I know what team I'm siding with.
Totally. So. But I'm a broadcaster, so I got to be neutral.
Do you have to be neutral? I guess you have to say you have to be neutral on this podcast. I see the colors you're wearing. That's all I need to know.
Hey, and by the way, red, white, and navy. Also, Ole Miss. And guess what? In the feed next Monday, we have Michael Assasso joining the show, doing a little Walker Cup talk, and then also a little Ole Miss national championship, his whole deal from a great season. So Michael Assasso in the feed next Monday. So make sure to check that out.
Ladies and gentlemen, that in the industry is what we call a tease. So well done, Smylie Kaufman.
How about it?
Thanks so much for listening to this recap. Enjoy Michael Assasso, as mentioned on that Monday episode. And then Wednesday, it's going to be a little dual feature. It's going to be assessing that European team. And then I might get a little sneak preview of that Walker Cup venue. Might be able to get out there and put my own two eyes on it. Put my own, work some clubs through the turf. Roll a few putts. We'll see. And we'll come live to you with all that analysis on Wednesday. So, stay tuned.
What are you trying to say?
I'm not gonna say anything until it's done. But if I were you, if I were listening or watching right now, I'd be staying tuned. There
you have it. Stay tuned. See you.
I listen to this podcast. It's really cool. And
all of our lovely fans and subscribers, but make sure you like and subscribe.
It's cool to see what you guys are doing. I know golf fans appreciate it, but we do too, so please keep it up.
For all the good people of YouTube, like and subscribe.
You guys have some good takes, so I'm happy to come on and shoot the